A cringe-worthy meeting leads to a roller coaster of emotions in this captivating CEO romance that will leave you breathless. Enjoy the story. The morning sun filtered through the enormous windows of the Rothschild Enterprises skyscraper, casting a golden glow over the polished marble of the lobby. Alexander Rothschild, CEO of the company and heir to a financial empire, strode through the area with hurried steps, his impeccable Italian suit and determined expression reflecting the image of corporate success he embodied. As he walked, Alex frantically checked his smartphone, responding to emails and messages with the efficiency of a general on the battlefield. So absorbed was he in his screen that he barely noticed people around him moving aside to let him pass, as if he were modern royalty. Mr. Rothschild caught a nervous voice. "Your meeting with the board starts in 5 minutes." Alex glanced up briefly, meeting the anxious gaze of his assistant. "Thank you, Parker. I'll be there in a moment." He gestured dismissively with his hand, returning his attention to the device. Turning left down the hallway, Alex pushed the first door he saw, still typing furiously. The lavender scent and soft lighting should have been the first signs that something was amiss, but the CEO was completely oblivious to his surroundings. It was only when he heard a sharp scream that Alex finally lifted his eyes from his phone. "Oh my God!" exclaimed a female voice. In front of him, a young woman stared at him with wide eyes, her hands clutching a towel to her chest in a protective gesture. Wet brown hair framed a face that expressed a mix of shock and indignation. It was at that moment that realization dawned on Alex. He looked around, noting for the first time the details he had ignored. The pastel tones on the walls, the decorative flowers, the full-length mirrors. Horror and comprehension flooded his face. "I'm sorry," he stammered, stepping back. "I didn't realize this is a ladies' room." The woman, recovering from the initial shock, narrowed her eyes. "Clearly," she replied, her tone oscillating between sarcasm and exasperation. "Maybe if you took your eyes off your phone for a second, you would have noticed the signs on the door." The acidity in her voice caught Alex by surprise. Few people dared speak to him in that tone, especially in the company. Intrigued and flustered, he found himself momentarily speechless. He began, but was interrupted by the sound of the door opening again. "Sophia, are you okay?" I heard a scream, and the newcomer, an older woman with a security badge, stopped abruptly upon seeing Alex. Her eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Rothschild?" Alex's face burned with embarrassment. It was a mistake, he murmured, retreating toward the door. "My sincerest apologies." Before he could escape, however, his eyes met the young woman's again. Sophia, apparently. There was something in that look, a mix of defiance and curiosity, that made him hesitate for a second longer than he should have. "Maybe," Sophia said, a slight smile playing on her lips, "you should consider putting bigger labels on the doors. Or glasses." Alex blinked, surprised once more by the audacity. Before he could formulate a response, the security intervened. "Mr. Rothschild, let me escort you back to the correct corridor." With a final glance at Sophia, who now wore an indecipherable expression, Alex nodded and followed the security out. As he walked toward the meeting room, Alex found himself unable to shake thoughts about the incident. The image of Sophia, with her defiant eyes and sharp comments, lingered in his mind. Parker awaited him anxiously at the meeting room door. "Mr. Rothschild, is everything all right? You seem unsettled." Alex adjusted his tie, trying to regain composure. "I'm fine, Parker. Just a minor setback." As he entered the room, greeting the board members with a forced smile, Alex couldn't help but feel that something had changed. The bathroom incident, as embarrassing as it was, had stirred something in him, a curiosity, an interest he hadn't felt in a long time. Sitting at the head of the table, Alex tried to focus on the charts and reports in front of him, but somewhere in the back of his mind, a sardonic voice echoed. "Maybe you should consider putting bigger labels on the doors. Or glasses." And, against his will, a small smile appeared on his lips. The days following the bathroom incident were an emotional roller coaster for Alexander Rothschild. Sitting in his luxurious office on the top floor of the building, He found himself constantly looking away from financial spreadsheets to the city sprawling beyond the panoramic windows. His thoughts invariably returned to that embarrassing moment, and to the woman who had challenged him in a way no one had dared in years. Sophia, he murmured, savoring the name as if it were a rare wine. Alex shook his head, trying to dispel the image of those brown eyes filled with fire and determination. It was ridiculous, he thought, for a CEO of his stature to be obsessed with a casual encounter with an employee. A soft knock at the door interrupted his reverie. "Come in," he said, straightening in his chair and pretending to examine the documents in front of him. Parker, his assistant, entered with a stack of folders. "The reports you asked for, Mr. Rothschild," he said, placing them carefully on the desk. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "Is everything all right, sir? You seem distracted lately." Alex looked up, surprised by the observation. Was it that obvious? "I'm fine, Parker," he replied, trying to sound convincing. "Just reevaluating some company strategies." Parker nodded, not looking entirely convinced. "Well, if you need anything, just call." With that, he withdrew, leaving Alex alone once more with his thoughts. Sighing, Alex got up and walked to the window. Below, people looked like ants, each one rushing to fulfill their daily obligations. Somewhere in that human anthill was Sophia, probably working, unaware of the effect she had caused on the powerful CEO. "This is madness," Alex muttered to himself. He was Alexander Rothschild, for God's sake. He had built an empire, brokered billion-dollar mergers, faced financial market sharks. How could he be so shaken by a mere what? Employee? Stranger? Vision? Determined to regain control, Alex returned to his desk and dove into work. But every few minutes, his gaze drifted to the door, half expecting, half fearing that Sophia might appear at any moment. Meanwhile, several floors below, Sophia Martinez was experiencing her own emotional whirlwind. Sitting in her cramped cubicle in the HR department, she alternated between furiously typing reports and casting anxious glances at the executive elevator. "He probably doesn't even remember me," Sophia murmured to herself, nervously adjusting the collar of her blouse. "He's likely had more important meetings with far more interesting people since then." But no matter how much she tried to convince herself of this, Sophia couldn't forget the expression on Alexander Rothschild's face that day in the bathroom. Shock, embarrassment, but also something more. Interest? Curiosity? "Stop it, Sophia," she chastised herself, turning her attention to the computer screen. "He's the CEO, for God's sake. You're just another employee to him." Talking to yourself again, Sophia? The voice of her colleague, Mia, came from a neighboring cubicle. "Careful, or they'll think you're going crazy." Sophia forced a laugh. "Just rehearsing a presentation," she lied, feeling her cheeks burn. "Sure," Mia replied, not sounding convinced. "It has nothing to do with the rumor about you meeting Mr. Hottie CEO in the ladies' room, right?" Sophia nearly choked on the coffee she was drinking. "How did you?" Mia shrugged, a mischievous grin on her lips. "News travels fast around here, darling. So tell me, how was it?" "It was nothing," Sophia insisted, trying to keep her voice down. "It was just an embarrassing misunderstanding. I'm sure he's already forgotten." But even as she said this, Sophia couldn't help but cast a hopeful glance toward the elevators. Had he really forgotten? Back in his office, Alex finally gave in to the urge he had been fighting for days. "Parker," he called over the intercom, "I need you to bring me the personal file of an employee." "Certainly, sir," came the prompt response. "Which employee?" Alex hesitated for a moment, almost reconsidering. But curiosity was stronger. "Sophia Martinez," he finally said, "from the HR department." There was a pause on the other end, and Alex could swear he heard a note of surprise in Parker's voice when he replied, "Immediately, Mr. Rothschild." As he waited, Alex wondered what exactly he was doing. Was it a violation of privacy? Probably. But something about that woman intrigued him in a way he couldn't explain. Minutes later, Parker entered with a thin folder. "Here it is, sir," he said, handing the file to Alex. "Anything else?" Alex shook his head, dismissing the assistant. As soon as he was alone, he opened the file, his eyes eagerly scanning the information. "Sophia Martinez, 28 years old, degree in business administration with a specialization in human resources. Hired 6 months ago as a junior assistant in the HR department. Excellent performance reviews so far. A photo attached to the file caught his attention. It was Sophia, smiling professionally for the camera. But even in that formal picture, Alex could see the spark in her eyes, the same one that had challenged him that day in the bathroom. Closing the file, Alex leaned back in his chair, a mix of conflicting emotions in his chest. Fascination, curiosity, and a pang of something he didn't dare name. "What are you doing to me, Sophia Martinez?" he murmured to the empty room. In that moment, as if answering an unasked question, Alex made a decision. He needed to see her again, talk to her. He didn't know how or when, but he knew it needed to happen. With renewed determination, he turned to his work, but now with a new purpose coursing through his veins. Alexander Rothschild had a new mission, and for the first time in years, it had nothing to do with mergers, acquisitions, or profits. It was about a woman who had dared to challenge him, and who, unknowingly, had captured much more than just his attention. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air of Rothschild Enterprises' corporate cafeteria. It was a modern and stylish place, with dark-wood tables and contemporary design chairs, reflecting the company's status. Normally, at this time of morning, the place would be crowded with employees seeking their daily dose of caffeine before diving into their tasks. But not today. Today, the cafeteria was strangely empty, except for a solitary figure seated in a distant corner. Sophia Martinez stirred her cup of tea distractedly, her eyes fixed on the door. She had arrived early on purpose, hoping to avoid the usual crowd. The past few days had been a torment of curious glances and poorly disguised whispers from her colleagues. The bathroom incident, as it was being called, had spread like wildfire throughout the company. Just a few more months, she murmured to herself. Finish the probationary period, gain experience, and then you can look for another job, far from here, far from him. As if conjured by her thoughts, the cafeteria door opened and Alexander Rothschild entered. Sophia froze, her hand gripping the cup so tightly that her fingers turned white. Alex paused for a moment, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Sophia. For a moment, he seemed to hesitate, as if considering turning back. But then, straightening his shoulders, he walked decisively toward her. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice softer than Sophia expected. "May I join you?" Sophia blinked, surprised. Part of her wanted to say no, to flee from there as quickly as possible. But another part, a part she didn't want to admit, was curious. "Of course, Mr. Rothschild," she replied, gesturing to the chair in front of her. Alex sat down, placing his cup of black coffee on the table. For a few moments, an uncomfortable silence hung between them. They both started simultaneously, stopping abruptly. A shy smile appeared on Sophia's lips, while Alex let out a nervous laugh. "Please," Alex said, gesturing for her to continue. Sophia took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize," she began, surprising Alex, "for what I said that day. It was inappropriate." Alex shook his head, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "No, I owe you an apology. My behavior was inexcusable." Walking in without looking, being so distracted he paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Actually, your honesty was refreshing." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Refreshing? I thought you'd fire me the next day." "Fire you?" Alex seemed genuinely shocked. "Why? For speaking the truth?" Silence fell between them again, but this time it was different. Less tense, more comfortable. "You know," Alex began, leaning slightly forward, "the past few days, I've been thinking a lot about that moment." Sophia's heart quickened. "Really?" Alex nodded. "It's been a long time since someone challenged me that way. It made me realize how disconnected I was." Sophia studied him for a moment. The powerful CEO seemed almost vulnerable. "Well," she said slowly, "maybe it's time to reconnect." "Maybe," Alex agreed, his eyes never leaving hers. "And maybe I need someone to show me how." The air between them seemed charged with electricity. Sophia felt a warmth rising up her neck, aware that they were treading into dangerous territory. Mr. Rothschild. Alex. He interrupted her softly. Please, call me Alex. Sophia hesitated, aware of the implications. Alex, she said finally, feeling the name strange on her tongue. This is complicated. He nodded, understanding. I know. Believe me, I know. But he paused, searching for the right words. There's something here, isn't there? Something worth exploring? Sophia felt her heart race even more. Part of her wanted to deny it, to say it was madness. But another part, the part that made her feel alive for the first time in years, wanted to say yes. Maybe, she finally replied, a small smile playing on her lips. Alex smiled back, a smile that lit up his eyes in a way Sophia had never seen before. Then how about we start over? He extended his hand. Hello, I'm Alexander Rothschild. It's a pleasure to meet you. Sophia looked at the outstretched hand, aware that she was on the brink of something that could change her life forever. With a deep sigh, she made her decision. Sophia Martinez, she said, shaking his hand. The pleasure is mine. In that moment, as their hands touched, they both felt a spark connection that went beyond words. It was the beginning of something new, exciting, and potentially dangerous. But as they looked into each other's eyes, smiling like two conspirators sharing a secret, neither Alex nor Sophia cared about the risks. In that instant, in that almost empty cafeteria, all that mattered was the here and now. And the here and now promised to be the beginning of a journey neither would ever forget. The weeks following the conversation in the cafeteria were a delicate dance of furtive glances and accidental encounters in the corridors of Rothschild Enterprises. Alexander and Sophia, aware of the curious eyes surrounding them, developed a silent code of communication, a discreet smile here, a nod there. Sometimes, Alex casually passed by the HR department, pretending to inspect operations. Sophia, in turn, found reasons to deliver reports personally on the executive floor. It was during one of these deliveries that Alex whispered, Café Lumiere. Tonight at 7 p.m., Sophia just nodded subtly, her heart racing with anticipation. Café Lumiere was a discreet establishment, tucked away on a side street far from the financial district. With soft lighting and spaced-out tables, it offered the perfect refuge for private conversations. That evening, Sophia arrived first, choosing a table in the farthest corner. She nervously toyed with the edge of her napkin as Alex entered, looking strangely casual without his usual executive suit. Sorry I'm late, he said. Sitting down. I had to give my driver the slip. Sophia smiled, relaxing a bit. I imagine it's not easy for the great CO to escape unnoticed. Alex chuckled quietly. You have no idea. Sometimes I feel like I live in a glass cage. The conversation flowed naturally, as if they were old friends reconnecting. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, their frustrations. Alex shared the weight of family expectations, while Sophia revealed her struggles as a daughter of immigrants seeking her place in the corporate world. You know, Alex said, looking thoughtfully at a glass of wine, I never thought I'd feel so comfortable with someone, especially someone who met me in such embarrassing circumstances. Sophia laughed, recalling the bathroom incident. Well, let's just say it was an unforgettable meeting. As the night progressed, the connection between them deepened. There were moments of comfortable silence, interrupted by spontaneous laughter or tentative hand touches across the table. This is crazy, isn't it? Sophia asked softly, her eyes meeting Alex's. Us, here, hiding like teenagers. Alex nodded, a melancholic smile on his lips. It is, but for the first time in years, I feel alive. The moment was interrupted by the sound of familiar voices approaching the cafe. Alex and Sophia instinctively shrank back, recognizing members of the company board. Damn, Alex murmured, his hand finding Sophia's under the table. We can't be seen, with her heart racing. Sophia looked around, searching for an escape. The kitchen, she whispered, pointing to a discreet door. Without hesitation, Alex left a generous amount of money on the table and, hand in hand, they quickly sneaked into the kitchen. The chef, surprised by the intrusion, opened his mouth to protest, but Alex quickly placed a finger on his lips, pleading for silence. Understanding the situation, The chef pointed to the back exit. Alex and Sophia ran, emerging into a dark alley, the cool night air enveloping them. For a moment, they stood still, panting, backs against the cafe wall. Then, as if hit by the absurdity of the situation, they began to laugh. "I can't believe we just did that," Sophia said through laughter, her body trembling with adrenaline. Alex, still laughing, turned to her. The dim alley light illuminated Sophia's face in a way that made his heart skip. Without thinking, he leaned in and kissed her. The kiss was gentle, hesitant at first, but quickly turned into something deeper, more urgent. When they finally parted, they were both breathless, but for completely different reasons now. "I'm sorry," Alex began, but Sophia interrupted him, placing a finger on his lips. "Don't be," she whispered, her eyes glowing. "I'm not." They stayed there, in the dark alley, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, aware that they had crossed a line for which there was no return. "And now," Sophia asked softly, her voice barely audible over the distant sound of traffic. Alex pulled her closer, wrapping her in his arms. "Now," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion, "now we figure this out together." As they remained embraced, the world around them seemed to fade away. It didn't matter that they were CEO and employee, that they came from different worlds, that they would face enormous obstacles. In that moment, they were just Alex and Sophia, two hearts beating in unison, ready to face whatever fate had in store for them. The distant sound of sirens brought them back to reality. With one final kiss, soft and full of promises, they separated. "Tomorrow?" Alex asked, his eyes seeking confirmation in hers. Sophia nodded, a smile lighting up her face. "Tomorrow." And so they went their separate ways into the night, their hearts full and their minds swirling with possibilities. The buzz in the corridors of Rothschild Enterprises began as an almost imperceptible whisper. A glance here, a whispered comment there. Gradually, like a rising tide, the rumors about Alexander Rothschild and Sophia Martinez gained strength. Sophia felt the gazes as she walked through the office. Colleagues who barely noticed her presence before now watched her with a mixture of curiosity and thinly veiled envy. She held her head high, pretending not to notice, but inside her stomach churned with anxiety. "Hey, Sophia," Mia called, approaching her cubicle with a mischievous smile. "Is it true what they're saying? You and Mr. Hottie CEO?" Sophia felt the heat rise up her neck. "I don't know what you're talking about, Mia," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Mia leaned in, lowering her voice. "Oh, come on. You two were seen at Café Lumiere. Jenny from finance swears she saw you leaving through the back." Sophia's heart raced. They had been so careful, or at least they thought they had been. "Mia, please," she pleaded quietly. "Don't spread rumors. This could ruin my career." Mia's expression softened. "Hey, sorry. I thought it was exciting, no? Like a modern fairy tale." She patted Sophia's shoulder. "Your secret is safe with me." But Sophia knew that wasn't true. At Rothschild Enterprises, secrets had a short life. Meanwhile, on the executive floor, Alex faced his own challenges. Sitting in a board meeting, he could barely concentrate on the financial projections being presented. His thoughts kept drifting back to Sophia, to the kiss in the alley, to the uncertain future awaiting them. "Alex? Alex!" The annoyed voice of Gerald Hawthorne, the CFO, brought him back to reality. "Did you hear a word I said?" Alex blinked, trying to compose himself. "Sorry, Gerald. I was reflecting on the long-term implications." Gerald frowned, clearly unconvinced. "Well, as I was saying, there are rumors circulating around the company that are starting to affect employee morale." Alex's stomach sank. He knew exactly what Gerald was talking about, but decided to play defensively. "What kind of rumors?" Patricia Winters, the HR director, cleared her throat uncomfortably. "Alex, you know what we're talking about. Your involvement with a junior employee is causing a stir." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on Alex. He felt a wave of anger and frustration rising up his chest. Who were they to judge his personal life? "My private life," he began, his voice dangerously calm, "is not a subject for discussion in this room." Gerald banged the table, his eyes sparking. It is when it affects the company. Think of your reputation. Alex. Of Rothschild Enterprises' reputation. Alex stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the marble floor. This meeting is adjourned, he declared, ignoring the protests from board members as he left the room. He walked swiftly through the corridors, aware of the stares and whispers that followed him. He needed to see Sophia, needed to make sure she was okay. Sophia was organizing files when she heard a commotion outside the HR department. She looked up in time to see Alex entering, his face a mask of worry and determination. "Mr. Rothschild," she said formally, aware of her colleague's shocked looks. "How can I help you?" Alex hesitated for a moment, glancing around at the gaping employees. Then, as if making a decision, he approached Sophia. "Miss Martinez," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I need to speak with you. In private." The whispers would explode into a frenzy of gossip as soon as they left. Sophia knew this. But at that moment, looking into Alex's eyes, she didn't care. "Of course, Mr. Rothschild," she replied, following him out of the office. They walked in silence to an empty conference room. As soon as the door closed behind them, Alex pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," he murmured into her hair. "I'm so sorry for all of this." Sophia pulled back slightly, looking into his eyes. "Alex, what's happening?" He sighed, running his hand through his hair in frustration. "The board knows, or at least suspects. They're pushing, talking about reputation and employee morale." Sophia felt a knot form in her stomach. "And what are you going to do?" Alex looked at her, his eyes full of fierce determination. "I'm going to fight. For us. This," he gestured between them, "is too real to give up on." Sophia felt tears welling in her eyes. Part of her wanted to tell Alex to forget everything, to save his career and reputation. But another part, the part that had fallen hopelessly in love with him, couldn't bear the thought of letting him go. "It won't be easy," she whispered. Alex smiled, that smile that made her heart melt. The best things in life never are. In that moment, with the whispers and glances from the outside world pressing against the conference room walls, Alex and Sophia sealed their determination with a kiss. A kiss that said, "We're in this together." A kiss that promised to weather any storm that might come. When they finally parted, both knew that things would never be the same again. The whispers in corridors would turn into shouts, the glances into open judgments. But there in each other's arms, they found the strength to face whatever the future held. The world outside could wait. For now, they had each other, and that was all that mattered. The days passed. The aroma of home-cooked food filled the small apartment of the Martinez family. Sophia was in the kitchen, helping her mother, Elena, prepare tamales, a family recipe passed down through generations. The sound of laughter and conversations in Spanish came from the living room, where her father, Carlos, and her two younger brothers were watching a soccer match. "Daughter," Elena said, looking at Sophia with perceptive eyes, "you are very quiet today. Is something bothering you?" Sophia hesitated, her hands pausing momentarily over the corn dough. "Mama," she began, her voice low, "I met someone." Elena's face lit up. "Oh, dear. That's wonderful. Who is he? Is he a good guy?" Sophia felt a knot forming in her throat. How could she explain to her traditional mother that she was falling for the billionaire CEO of the company where she worked? "He's complicated, Mama," Sophia finally said. "He is my boss." "Well, technically, everyone's boss in the company." Elena's smile faded, replaced by an expression of concern. "Sophia, you know how hard we've worked to give you an education, to provide you with opportunities we never had. A relationship like this could ruin everything." Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes. "I know, Mama, but he's different. He sees me, really sees me." Elena sighed, placing a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Bring him to dinner," she finally said. "Let us meet him before we make any judgments." Dinner at the Martinez house was a blend of aromas, flavors, and cultures. Alex, initially uncomfortable, soon found himself engrossed in Carlos's lively stories about his immigration journey and Sophia's brother's curious questions about what it was like to be a big boss. Elena watched everything with attentive eyes, noticing how Alex looked at her daughter, the way he tried to connect with the family. At the end of the night, as Alex helped wash the dishes, to everyone's surprise, Elena pulled Sophia aside. "Daughter," she said softly, "I see the love in his eyes, but your path will not be easy." Sophia hugged her mother, tears of relief and gratitude streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you for understanding, Mama." The next day, across the city in a grand mansion in the affluent suburbs, Alexander Rothschild faced his own familial interrogation. A secretary, Alex? Really? His older sister, Victoria's, voice was laden with disapproval. "Do you have any idea what this will do to the family's reputation?" Alex took a sip of his whiskey, tried to maintain his composure. "She's not just a secretary. Vicky, Sophia is intelligent, compassionate, and challenges me in ways no one ever has." His father, the patriarch of the Rothschild family, watched the discussion silently from his leather chair. Finally, he spoke, his voice grave and authoritative. "Alexander, do you understand the implications of this? It's not just about you or this girl. It's about the legacy we've built." Alex felt a wave of frustration rise in his chest. "And what if I don't care about the legacy?" He retorted. "What if I want to live my own life, make my own choices?" A heavy silence fell over the room. Victoria looked at him as if he had gone mad, while his father studied him with an indecipherable expression. "Bring her to dinner," his father finally said. "Let us meet her before we make any hasty decisions." The next evening, Sophia waited nervously in front of her building, dressed in her best dress. When Alex's car pulled up, she felt her heart race. "You look beautiful," Alex said, kissing her softly before opening the car door. During the ride, Sophia couldn't stop wringing her hands. "What if they don't like me?" she asked quietly. Alex took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "They will love you just as I do." Days later, it was Sophia's turn to face dinner at the Rothschild mansion. The opulence of the place made her feel small and out of place. Victoria greeted her with a cold smile, while Mr. Rothschild watched her with calculating eyes. During dinner, Sophia was bombarded with questions about her education, her ambitions, and her family. She answered with grace and honesty, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke about her dreams and struggles. "You know," she said in a moment of courage, looking directly at Mr. Rothschild, "I understand you might have reservations about me. But I love your son, not for the Rothschild name or the money, but for the man he is." A silence fell over the table. Alex squeezed her hand under the tablecloth, his eyes shining with pride. Finally, Mr. Rothschild spoke. "Miss Martinez, you have more courage than many executives I know." A small smile appeared on his lips. "Perhaps my son has made a wise choice after all." Victoria looked shocked, but Alex and Sophia exchanged looks of relief and love. Later that night, as they walked hand in hand through the mansion's garden, Alex pulled Sophia close. "You were amazing," he whispered, kissing her softly. Sophia smiled against his lips. "We were amazing. Together." Looking up at the stars above, both knew that despite the challenges they would still face, they had taken a crucial step. Their families, so different yet similar in their love and concern, had opened the doors to their relationship. The road ahead would still be difficult, with professional and personal obstacles to overcome. But that night, under the starry sky, Alex and Sophia allowed themselves to dream of a future together, a future where love conquered all barriers. The sparkling lights of the ballroom at the Grand Rothschild Hotel reflected off the champagne glasses and expensive jewelry of the guests. The annual charity gala of Rothschild Enterprises was the most anticipated event of the year in the corporate world. A night of glamour, networking, and, of course, generous donations to noble causes. Sophia Martinez stood near one of the enormous windows, nervously adjusting the gala dress borrowed from her new friend in the marketing department. She felt like an intruder in this world of luxury and opulence, but she was determined to prove that she belonged there, alongside Alex. "You look stunning," whispered a familiar voice in her ear. Alex appeared at her side, magnificent in his tuxedo, his eyes shining with admiration. Sophia smiled, momentarily feeling more confident. "You don't look too bad yourself, Mr. Rothschild." Alex offered his arm to her. "Ready to face the sharks?" She took a deep breath, accepting his arm. as ready as I'll ever be. Together, they began to circulate through the ballroom. Sophia noticed the curious glances and whispers that followed them. Some were admiring, others envious, and some, unfortunately, filled with thinly veiled disapproval. Alex, darling, an elegant middle-aged woman approached, her eyes evaluating Sophia from head to toe. "Who is your friend?" Alex smiled, pulling Sophia closer. "Mrs. Vanderbilt, I'd like you to meet Sophia Martinez." "Sophia, this is Margaret Vanderbilt, one of our major investors." Sophia extended her hand, determined to make a good impression. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Vanderbilt." Margaret shook Sophia's hand briefly, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Likewise, dear. And what do you do exactly?" Before Sophia could answer, Alex intervened. "Sophia is one of the brightest minds in our HR department. In fact, she has some innovative ideas to enhance employee wellness that I'm eager to implement." Margaret raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Fascinating," she murmured, before moving away to greet other guests. The evening continued like this, with Alex and Sophia navigating a series of similar interactions. Some were kind and welcoming. Others barely hid their disdain. When it was time for the speeches, Alex took the stage to deliver his annual address. Sophia watched with pride as he spoke passionately about the company's charity projects and the importance of corporate social responsibility. Then everything fell apart. Gerald Hawthorne, the CFO who had been particularly vocal against Alex and Sophia's relationship, staggered to the stage, clearly intoxicated. "Hey, folks," he shouted into the microphone, interrupting Alex. "Do you want to know the real reason why our dear CEO is so interested in social responsibility lately?" The room went silent, all eyes on Gerald. Alex tried to intervene, but Gerald brushed him aside. "It's because of her." Gerald pointed directly at Sophia, who felt the blood drain from her face. "Our little HR secretary managed to snag the big fish. Who knew that sleeping with the boss still worked these days, huh?" There was a collective gasp in the ballroom. Sophia felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She wanted to run, hide, disappear. Alex, furious, tore the microphone from Gerald's hands. "That's enough," he roared. "Security, remove Mr. Hawthorne immediately." As Gerald was being dragged out, Alex searched for Sophia in the crowd, but she had already vanished. Sophia ran through the hotel corridors, tears blurring her vision. She locked herself in a luxurious bathroom, sliding down to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Minutes later, she heard gentle knocking on the door. "Sophia?" Alex's voice was laden with concern. "Please, open up. We need to talk." Slowly, with shaky legs, Sophia stood up and unlocked the door. Alex came in, immediately pulling her into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry for all of this." Sophia pulled away, her eyes red and swollen. "Alex, what are we going to do? Everyone thinks I'm a gold digger, that I'm with you just for the money and power." Alex held her face in his hands. "I don't care what they think. I know who you are, Sophia. I know what we have." But Sophia shook her head, stepping back. "It's not that simple. Your reputation, the company's reputation, everything is at risk because of me." "Sophia, please don't talk like that. We can get through this together." She looked at him, fresh tears glistening in her eyes. Maybe we need some time apart. To think, to let things calm down." Alex's heart felt like it was breaking, but he knew he couldn't force her. "If that's what you want." Sophia nodded sadly. "It's what we need to do." With a final, painful look, Sophia left the bathroom, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts and a heavy heart. Meanwhile, in the ballroom, the guests continued to whisper and speculate. The night's scandal would be the headline of the morning, and both Alex and Sophia knew that the repercussions of this disaster were far from over. The gala, which was supposed to be a celebration of charity and goodwill, had turned into a nightmare threatening to destroy not only careers, but also a love that had barely begun to blossom. The days following the Gala Disaster were a blur of sensational headlines, tense board meetings, and deafening silence between Alex and Sophia. Alex found himself alone in his office at the top of Rothschild Tower, staring blankly at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The gray, rainy sky seemed to perfectly mirror his mood. His desk was cluttered with unread reports and unanswered emails. For the first time in his career, Alexander Rothschild was completely unfocused. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he murmured, without turning around. Patricia Winters, the HR director, entered hesitantly. "Alex," she began, her voice gentle, "the board is asking for an official statement about the incident." Alex finally turned, his eyes tired and dull. "And what do they want me to say, Patricia? That it was all a misunderstanding? That Sophia is just another employee?" Patricia sighed, stepping closer. "Alex, I know this is hard, but we need to think about the company. Stocks have dropped 5% since the gala. To hell with the stocks." Alex burst out, slamming his fist on the desk. He immediately regretted it, running a hand over his face. "Sorry, Patricia. I just don't know what to do." Patricia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You need time, Alex. Maybe a temporary leave is best for everyone." Alex looked at her, shocked. "You wanted to step down?" "Just for a few weeks," she quickly explained. "To let things cool off. Think of it as a forced vacation." After Patricia left, Alex sank into his chair, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. He picked up his phone, looking at Sophia's picture on the screen. His fingers hovered over the call button, but he couldn't bring himself to press it. Across the city, in her small apartment, Sophia was curled up on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the news with a horrified expression. "The scandal at Rothschild Enterprises continues to unfold," the anchor said. Sources claim that CEO Alexander Rothschild may face pressure to resign due to his relationship with a junior employee. Sophia turned off the TV, unable to take any more. Her phone buzzed for the 100th time that day, another message from her mom asking if she was okay. She hadn't answered anyone since the night of the gala. An email from HR flashed on her screen. Paid administrative leave. In other words, they wanted her to disappear for a while. Hot tears streamed down her cheeks. How had everything gone so wrong so quickly? Just weeks ago, she had been living a fairy tale. Now, she felt like the villain in a corporate tragedy. The sound of the doorbell startled her. Hesitantly, she dragged herself to the door, peering through the peephole. Mia, her colleague from HR, stood outside, holding a bottle of wine and a box of chocolates. Sophia slowly opened the door. "Mia?" "Hey, girl," Mia said softly. "I thought you could use a friend." The two spent the night talking, crying, and eventually laughing a little. Mia was the first person who made Sophia feel normal since the incident. "You know," Mia said, pouring another glass of wine, "my cousin works at a tech startup. They're looking for someone to head HR. Maybe it's time for a new start?" Sophia looked at her, a spark of hope lighting up in her chest for the first time in days. In the weeks that followed, Alex and Sophia each tried in their own ways to rebuild their lives. Alex threw himself into work, spending endless hours reviewing every aspect of the company, seeking to distract himself from the pain of separation. He implemented new policies, restructured departments, and even started a mentoring program for junior employees, all to prove he was more than the tabloids portrayed him as. Sophia, on the other hand, decided to take the offer at the startup. It was a completely different environment from Rothschild Enterprises, relaxed, innovative, and most importantly, free from the weight of the expectations and judgments that had stifled her in her old job. But despite their attempts to move on, both felt an emptiness that nothing seemed to fill. Alex found himself looking at the empty chair in board meetings, imagining the witty comments Sophia would make. Sophia, on the other hand, sometimes found herself typing Alex's number, only to erase it before hitting call. One night, Alex was in his office late, as had become his habit. He opened his desk drawer, taking out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate sapphire ring, a piece he had bought weeks before, dreaming of a future with Sophia. At the same moment, miles away, Sophia was in her new office at the startup, unpacking her things. At the bottom of a box, she found a photo of her and Alex, taken during one of their secret dates in the park. Their smiles were radiant, filled with promises and possibilities. Both stared at their respective treasures, feeling the weight of each other's absence. The distance between them felt insurmountable, but the love they felt remained, a stubborn ember that refused to fully extinguish. As the night wore on, Alex and Sophia, apart but united in thought, wondered if there would be a way back to each other, or if the price of their love had been too high to pay. The sun had barely risen when Alexander Rothschild entered his office at Rothschild Tower. The past weeks have been a whirlwind of relentless work, sleepless nights, and deep introspection. But this morning, something was different. Alex carried with him a renewed determination, a sparkle in his eyes that had long been absent. He walked to the window, watching the city awaken. Somewhere out there, Sophia was starting her day, perhaps getting ready for another day at the startup she now called home. The pain of her absence was still palpable, but now it was accompanied by a clarity Alex had never experienced before. Mr. Rothschild, the hesitant voice of Parker, brought him back to the present. The board is waiting in the conference room. Alex turned, an enigmatic smile on his lips. Thank you, Parker. Tell them I'll be there in a moment. When Alex entered the conference room, the hum of conversation ceased immediately. The board members watched him with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. In recent months, their meetings had been tense, filled with discussions about reputational damage and crisis management strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex began, his voice firm and full of purpose, I appreciate your presence this morning. I have some significant statements to make. Gerald Hawthorne, who had been reinstated to the board after a period of reflection, frowned. Alex, if this is about that girl, this, Alex interrupted him, is about much more than one person. It's about who we are as a company and as human beings. He paused, looking each member in the eye before continuing. In the past weeks, I've delved deeply into every aspect of our operation. I've read every report, spoken with employees at all levels, and what I discovered was enlightening. Alex walked to the whiteboard and began writing. Pay disparity, lack of diversity at senior levels, outdated parental leave policies, no mental wellness programs. He listed item after item, while the board watched in stunned silence. These, he said, turning to face them, are the real issues we face. Not a CEO who fell in love with a brilliant and dedicated employee. Victoria, his sister, and a board member leaned forward. Alex, what exactly are you proposing? A revolution, he replied, his eyes shining with passion. A complete overhaul of our corporate policies. Mandatory pay equity. A robust diversity and inclusion program. Extended parental leave for all employees, regardless of gender. Massive investment in mental health and wellness programs. The ensuing silence was deafening. Finally, Patricia Winters, the HR director, spoke up. Alex, that's ambitious. The cost would be astronomical, and the long-term benefits will be incalculable, Alex countered. Think of the employee loyalty, the productivity, the innovation that will come from a truly diverse and supported workforce. Gerald scoffed. This is madness. The shareholders will never approve. Alex smiled, a smile that mixed confidence and challenge. But they will, because I'm going public with it. The room erupted in protests, but Alex raised his hand, silencing them. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'm holding a press conference. I will announce all these changes and more. I will talk about the need for real corporate responsibility, not just empty gestures of charity. He paused, his gaze softening. And I will talk about Sophia, about how meeting her opened my eyes to the realities faced by our employees every day, about how love can be the catalyst for change. Victoria stood up, approaching her brother. Alex, are you sure about this? Once you make this announcement, there's no turning back. Alex nodded, his resolve unwavering. I'm more sure about this than anything else in my life. As the board engaged in heated discussions, Alex stepped away, picking up his phone. His fingers hovered over Sophia's name for a moment before he pressed call. After 3 agonizing rings, the voice he longed to hear answered. Alex? Sophia, he said, his heart racing, we need to talk. There's something I need to tell you. Something important. On the other end of the line, Sophia held the phone tightly, a mix of emotions crossing her face. Okay, she responded softly. Where do we meet? Alex smiled, feeling a wave of hope wash over him. At the place where it all began. Café Lumiere, 7 p.m. As he hung up, Alex looked back at the conference room, where the board was still furiously debating. He knew that the path ahead would be challenging, that there would be resistance and obstacles. But for the first time in months, he felt truly alive, full of purpose. Alexander Rothschild was about to change not only his life, but the lives of thousands of employees. And if all went well, he hoped to win back the heart of the woman who had inspired it all. The CEO's epiphany was not just about business or love. It was about doing the right thing, about using power and privilege to create meaningful change. And as the sun rose on the horizon, promising a new day, Alex felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Café Lumiere was nearly empty when Sophia walked in, her heart beating wildly in her chest. The place where it all began seemed different now, laden with memories and possibilities. She spotted Alex sitting in a secluded corner, 2 steaming cups of coffee in front of him. "Hi," she said softly, sliding into the chair opposite him. Alex looked up, a shy smile on his lips. "Hi, thanks for coming." For a moment, they sat in silence, unspoken word hovering between them. Finally, Alex spoke. "I did something today. Something big." He then proceeded to tell her about the board meeting, about his radical proposals, about the planned press conference for the next day. Sophia listened, her eyes widening with each revelation. "Alex," she whispered when he finished, "that's incredible. But why? Why now?" Alex reached across the table, hesitating before gently taking her hand. "Because of you, Sophia. Knowing you, loving you made me see the world in a completely new way. It made me want to be better, to do better." Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes. "But what about your career? Your reputation?" "Some things are more important," Alex replied, his gaze steady. "I've realized that the real legacy I want to leave isn't one of record profits or billion-dollar mergers. It's a company that truly cares about its employees, that makes a difference in the world." Sophia squeezed his hand, a tremulous smile on her lips. "I'm so proud of you, Alex." "Come with me," Alex said suddenly, standing and gently pulling her along. They left the cafe, walking hand in hand through the city streets. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. Alex led them to a nearby park, stopping under a large tree. "Remember this place?" he asked. Sophia looked around, recognition lighting up her face. "Our first real kiss. After we escaped those executives at the cafe." Alex smiled, turning to face her. "Sophia, these past months without you have been the hardest of my life, but they've also been the most transformative." He took both her hands in his. "I realized I don't just want to change the company. I want to change my life. And I want to do it with you by my side." Sophia held her breath as Alex knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sophia Martinez," he said, his voice trembling slightly with emotion, "you made me a better man. You showed me a world beyond spreadsheets and profits. You taught me the true meaning of love and compassion." He opened the box, revealing a delicate sapphire ring. "Would you do me the honor of marrying me? Of building not just a life, but a legacy of change and love together?" Tears were freely streaming down Sophia's face. "Oh, Alex," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." As Alex slid the ring onto her finger, Sophia pulled him up, capturing his lips in a passionate kiss. When they parted, both were laughing and crying at the same time. "So what happens now?" Sophia asked, resting her forehead against his. Alex smiled, his eyes glowing with love and determination. "Now we change the world. Together." In the months that followed, Rothschild Enterprises went through a radical transformation. Alex's press conference, where he announced not only the changes to the company, but also his engagement to Sophia, caused a media frenzy. Initially, there was skepticism and resistance, but as the new policies were implemented and results began to show, the tide turned. Sophia, with her experience at the startup and her passion for human resources, became an integral partner in the company's restructuring. Together, she and Alex launched the Rothschild Martinez Foundation, dedicated to promoting equality and well-being in workplaces worldwide. 1 year after that fateful announcement, Alex and Sophia were married in an intimate ceremony in the garden of the Rothschild mansion. Elena cried tears of joy watching her daughter radiant at the altar, while Mr. Rothschild, with tears in his eyes, told Alex he'd never been prouder. The wedding reception was a celebration not just of Alex and Sophia's love, but the impact they had made. Employees of Rothschild Enterprises, from executives to cleaning staff, mingled and chatted animatedly, a testament to the culture of inclusion they had created. As they danced their first dance as a married couple, Alex pulled Sophia close. "You know," he murmured in her ear, "I think we should thank that ladies' restroom." Sophia laughed, throwing her head back. Who knew such an awkward encounter would lead to all this? Alex twirled her gently, his eyes never leaving hers. "I love you, Sophia Rothschild Martinez, more than words can express." "And I love you, Alexander Rothschild Martinez," she replied, her heart overflowing with happiness. As they continued to dance, surrounded by friends, family, and a community they had helped build, Alex and Sophia knew this was just the beginning of a life together, of a legacy of change, and of a love that would continue to inspire and transform not just them, but everyone around them. And so, under the stars of a summer night, with promises of a bright future ahead, ends our story of a CEO and a secretary who dare to defy conventions, follow their hearts, and in the process, change not just their own lives, but the world around them.
If you enjoyed the story, don't miss the next ones appearing on your screen. Leave your like and subscribe to the channel. It means the world to us. See you next time.